Toby, if someone smacked your butt at church, what would you do?
I think I'd have the goose reaction. Woo!
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who was recently touched at church, and I'm here with my co-host who has, gotten the goose reaction upon hearing this story, Toby Walters.
So, do you go to a church that believes in the laying on of hands? Is that what we're?
Oh, I wish. I have a friend who she went to one of those in college as a friend, like with a friend, and they were smacking people with Bibles, and then you would have to fall on the ground, and she just went, ow, and then they all got so mad at her because she didn't faint. All right, Toby, you've gone to Fellowship Church.
Yes.
You know the long hallway that's in front of the, like where you do service?
Sure. Yeah, like the atrium, whatever you want to call it.
So I'm bending over in the atrium. Already a biohazard. Because I'm trying to scan this QR code.
Yeah.
And my wife is behind me. And I feel the distinct feeling of a hand sliding all the way across my butt.
Okay.
So, I mean, you think it's your wife, right?
Yeah, getting very excited.
Yeah, but you're also like, wait a minute, honey. We're in the church atrium.
Yeah.
Well, I look to my left and I see a 40-year-old woman who's just past me locking eyes with me.
And that's not your wife.
It's not my wife.
Okay.
And she looks equally mortified, embarrassed, and laughing.
So, okay, I'm assuming she thought you were her husband and accidentally fully touched your butt, or just didn't realize as she was walking by that she fully grazed your booty.
All I have is a theory, because I think I also heard like a kind of laugh, smirk. I think she was looking the other way, walking with her hands, and her hand just innocently skirted across my butt. Yeah. My favorite part of this, though, is she looks at me, and you can tell in her eyes this is too awkward to address.
Yeah.
And she just kind of like does a quick giggle and just runs. Yeah. Like she doesn't walk, she sprints off.
I've had a common fear that, when I'm with my wife, like I'll do a little butt pinch as good husbands do, but I have this super deep fear that I'm accidentally going to do a butt pinch on somebody that's not my wife because it looks like my wife from behind.
Toby, I resonate with this so much.
Yes.
The amount of times I've almost smacked someone else's butt. Because when you're at home, you smack your wife's butt.
Yeah.
I live on 3 flights of stairs. I'm like, honey, if I don't smack your butt, you should be concerned. If your significant other's behind you, you expect to get hit.
Yeah. And this kind of goes into some of those other fears of just doing and saying things that you didn't expect. Like you would never want to ask a woman if she's pregnant. Like some of these like cardinal rules. And so I had this moment one time and obviously, Blake, the younger we are as men, just the stupider we are. So
can concur.
In college one time, I was at a young adult service at my church, and this woman came, and it was her first time there. And she came in the front door, and I met her, and I said, are you here with friends? This is your first time? She said, oh, I'm looking for Kristen. And I knew Kristen. She was like an acquaintance of mine. So
you didn't know you didn't know Kristen biblically. You just knew Kristen.
Correct. Okay. Very much so. So I know that Kristen had talked about her mom a lot. And it said, my mom might stop by sometime. And this girl, in my defense, looked a bit older. And I said, oh, are you Kristen's mom? And the reaction that I got was absolute horror and anger mixed together, saying, no, I'm a year older than Kristen. I'm just her friend. So I've just, realized over my life that, your foot can go so far down your mouth if you put it in there. It's shocking, Blake.
And your hand can unexpectedly land on someone else's butt at church. Speaking of someone that I'd love for my hand to land on their butt at church, the production director at CCV, but you can call him whatever you want to, Ryan Wenzel. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Wow.
You didn't know what
intro, guys.
You didn't know what you're getting yourself into today, Ryan, did you?
No, man. I think you saved that one just for me, huh?
We should tell the audience we had a whole different story and had to pivot last second. And I was like, well, this happened to me at church last week.
Yeah. Ryan, have you ever had one of those, and it doesn't have to be the butt moment, but just those super awkward moments where you said something or you thought it was your wife and you're like, oh my gosh, that was not my wife?
No, I can't say that I have. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. And do you just have a lot more common sense than Blake and I, that you're not worried about accidentally pinching some random woman's butt because you thought it was your wife?
I would hope so.
He's just a much more, intelligent, smart, measured, balanced man.
That's not hard to do, Blake.
Not in this room. All right. But what is hard to do is to win 5 Truths and a Lie, our weekly game where we introduce the guest, and me and Toby try to see if we can guess their deception. Let's play this week's. Number 1. I have vacationed at Disneyland more than anywhere else.
Okay.
That's expensive. Number 2, I ran a recording studio for over 10 years.
Okay. That sounds like a production, dude.
I was about to say, that sounds like Toby's dream.
Yes.
Number 3, the left side of my face has been reconstructed due to an injury when I was 13. Now, Toby and I both analyzed Ryan's face. It looks completely not reconstructed at all.
And Blake, if you notice, sometimes like in Zoom, the image will be flipped backwards. And so I'm looking at what I think is the left side of his face, but then I'm like, well, maybe that's the right side because the image is reversed.
We have no idea.
I know.
Number 4, I've never seen a Marvel movie. About 5 years ago, that'd be a hot take, but not anymore. Number 5, I currently have 18 guitars. So his guitar collection can buy a pack of cigarettes.
No, you can. 18 is when you can buy cigarettes.
No, I'm saying it can.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute. I actually think it went up to 21.
Oh, did it?
It's probably for the best.
That's probably for the best, yes.
Number 6, to celebrate our 15-year wedding anniversary, my wife and I jumped off a cliff and did tandem paragliding. Did you smack her butt as you jumped off the cliff?
No, she smacked his. I'm going to lock in the reconstructed the left side of his face because I just don't see it. Like, he looks pretty symmetrical. He's a pretty handsome man, so I can't imagine that half of it's been redone. And I know, like, Blake, I don't know if you know, like, Miles Teller has had a lot of, like, facial reconstruction because he got in an accident. I think Zac Efron, too. So you can see some of that effect. But I don't see it with Ryan. So I'm going with that.
See, but our sales director, Jared, also had his face
that's right.
reconstructed. And
he is gorgeous.
These must be real. Can I get constructed to get fixed? I'm going to say it's the Marvel movie, and maybe he's actually a Marvel fanatic.
Okay.
So Ryan, we're locked in. I've got Marvel movie, and Toby has you the face?
Yep.
Toby's got your face. What's the lie?
Okay. The lie is I've never seen a Marvel movie.
Oh, Blake, you got a point?
Yes.
Dang it.
Good work, Blake.
So are you actually a big fan?
This is like a kind of a throwback to when Blair was on the episode. He talked about never seeing a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
So, it's just a tie back to that. So that was my lie.
So here you are just riding Blair's coattails as usual. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to level him up a little bit, Marvel. So.
And does Blair report to you at CCV?
He does.
Oh, okay. So he's in big trouble.
So he's riding Blair's coattails, who's also riding his coattails.
Yeah.
This is coattails inception.
Yeah.
Okay. How have you afforded to vacation at Disneyland more than anywhere else? CCV, got any job openings? I'm looking at.
No, this started many years ago. And believe it or not, there was a time when Disneyland was actually affordable. You could buy an annual pass and pay for basically 4 vacations with that annual pass. So my wife and I would do that every year. And we would take full advantage of that. We would go 4 times a year. So that became a trend. And then once it became unaffordable, now it's like maybe once a year we'll try to go and just go for a couple of days. But those days are long gone now.
And were you out in the Phoenix area still when you were vacationing there? Okay.
Yep. So it's only about a 5-hour drive. So it's a quick hop over to California and a good escapism for us. So something we've always just been doing and a tradition for our family.
See, Blake, it was pretty common for us to go to Disneyland growing up because, living outside of San Diego, it's just 1.5, 2 hours up to Disneyland. And again, like Ryan said, it wasn't crazy expensive back in the, 90s, early 2000s. But then when we moved to Nashville and people talk about Disney World vacations and they go down for a week and hit all the parks and it's like $5,000 or $6,000 for their family, like it blew our minds. Like, who's affording that? So it's different perspectives.
In 5th grade, I was given the option to get a pool or to go to Disney World. And I said, let's get a pool. And I'm really glad I made that decision. I'm guessing you made that same trade-off when you bought 18 guitars. What's the motivation there?
It's just the problem I have. Guitar player. I've been playing for over 20 years and just keep collecting them. I always find one excuse to keep buying another guitar. It's like I have to explain to my wife, well, this one does this better than this one or does this differently than this one. So I have to get this. You don't understand. And then just sit in my room and collect dust. So
you sound like my bourbon bottles, honey, this one has a smidge more vanilla.
Blake, do you know the real reason why church gear exists?
Because you had a gear addict or habit.
I had a gear addiction, and I had to, come up with an excuse to continue having a gear addiction when I'm married to my wife. So I said, well, what if I can buy it at cheap and then resell it for more? She said, well, if you can make money off it.
What if we just rename this podcast Gearheads Anonymous? Because Ivan came on and, confessed to having too many plugins. And said
such thing.
Well, okay. I guess Toby is the first member of Gearheads Anonymous.
Now, Ryan, what's your favorite guitar today? Because I know that's like saying your favorite child. It moves. It's a moving target.
Yeah, I've got a Fender Strat that I bought when I was in high school that is sentimental to me and just a workhorse. It's got a humbucker in the bridge, so it's really versatile and just it's one that I can pick up and I just know it and can play like really easily on it. So that's probably my favorite.
Yeah. And have you been to the Fender factory there in Arizona?
No, believe it or not, I have not.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to do that sometime.
Bucket list. Let's go, Blake.
Yep.
Church gear field trip.
Hey, you don't have to tell me twice. Let's do it. We did a Sweetwater field trip last year. Let's do a Fender field trip.
We saw some guitars, that's for sure.
And we didn't steal any.
That they know of.
Yeah, allegedly.
And tell us about this facial reconstruction, because
at
least on this screen, you look great.
You look amazing.
So I don't know if you can tell, there's kind of a scar here.
Okay, I see that.
Like maybe a little indent there.
Yeah.
I was going to call, I would have called that an indent before I would have scar even.
Yeah, so I was 13. Me and my good friend were in his backyard hitting some golf balls, and he had a driver in his hand.
Oh, no.
And was taking a swing, and I was a little too close to him, and on his backswing, he pinged me right here in the face, and it basically shattered all my orbital and all this right here. I blacked out, woke up, and couldn't see out of my eye. And I ran over to the bathroom to look in the mirror and saw the gash in my face, and my eyeball was basically protruding from the eye socket sideways. Call my dad. He comes over. He's freaking out. We drive to the hospital, and it was basically a week of reconstructive surgery. They took like a photograph of me and used that as they basically put a metal plate and reconstructed this whole side of my face. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I feel like the surgeon on this needs to get like 17 stars on Yelp because you can't tell. Also, I'm never going golfing again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you go to Topgolf, there's a little sign on the bays with like it's like a stick figure, don't stand too close to someone, and it's literally someone on the backswing and someone getting hit in the head. And I'm like, every time I go to Topgolf now, I'm like, man, that's it right there.
Yeah. Ryan, have you read the book Atomic Habits?
No.
It's very similar story happened to the author of that book. That's kind of the opening of the book. He actually gets hit with a baseball bat, but he went on to write a bestseller of 25 million copies. Did you turn your moment into a bestseller?
Just a missed opportunity.
Turned it into this podcast, Toby, which is going to go viral.
That's right.
Also, that is a great book to read this time of year. Great book.
Is.
Great. Yeah, I'll take note.
Well, Ryan, give us a kind of an overview, a snapshot of your background in production and what led to your role at CCV today.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. I've been in ministry for 19 years and grew up in the Lutheran church, very traditional church, small church. You know, we had hymnals and pews, and was basically really involved throughout my childhood. And then when high school hit, kind of stepped away from the church and had a season where I wasn't attending and wasn't connected. Met my wife in high school, and she tried pulling me back into church at her church there, and still wasn't feeling the connection there. So out of high school, was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I knew as a musician I wanted to do something with music. So I went to college for a year to get my performance degree in guitar, and that lasted about a year, and I quit that and just wasn't jiving with that. I've always been interested in audio production, in the studio world specifically. So there's an audio school in Phoenix called the Conservatory of Recording Arts that I went to, which is about a year program. You learn a bunch of different trades in there, you know, audio engineering with studio, live sound, game production, post-production, all sorts of things you can take out of that school and apply in the real world. So I really wanted to get into the studio realm of that. And out of that, I started calling some studios in Phoenix for my internship, and got in contact with the studio that was actually really close to where I lived. and connected with the guy who owned the studio, and we started talking. My first gig with him on my internship, we started talking about church, and he was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but the studio is actually owned by a church." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he's like, "Yeah, we're looking for a sound guy, and if you want to use your internship to be at the studio, but also hang with us on the weekend and get some audio experience in the church, that'd be cool. No pressure, And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'm always open to opportunity." And I was like, "What kind of church are you?" And he's like, "Well, we're actually a Lutheran church." I was like, "No way. Grew up Lutheran. This is awesome." So did that, showed up on the weekend, and it was a portable setup teardown church in a school gym with a really bad, PA.
I hear the acoustics more than make up for it, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The acoustics were money. And they're just like, here's the audio console. Here's some live drums to mix in this horribly treated acoustic room with live amps and monitors on stage, and make it sound as good as you can. I was like, all right, cool. So went in, had a blast, fell in love with the church, fell in love with the community, and that became a part-time job as their sound guy. And then that eventually led to a full-time opportunity with them overseeing the studio, in addition to being the kind of the production tech guy for the church, overseeing volunteers, overseeing all the tech systems. And then from there, one weekend they're just like, "Hey, we know you play guitar. We'd love to have you on stage." It's like, "Sure. Well, we got to figure out who's going to cover, audio." And they're like, "Don't worry, we'll figure that out. That's not that important." I'm like, "Okay." So I went on stage, play guitar, and they're like, "Well, now we need you on stage. We'll figure the sound thing out later." So it was a multi-hat role in a small church. I was on stage, I was in charge of the production, I was running a recording studio and doing other things on top of that, and did that for about 15 years. Love that church, love that community, and then COVID hit. And I think we all have COVID stories, but everything just kind of paused that year. And, something that you never think happened where your job shuts down and you're unsure, like what's going to be reality after this for this church, for me, for my family. Like,
I think that after every all staff, I totally understand, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like a scary time for a lot of people, myself included, and really leaned into God in that season. My wife and I both were in seasons like that with our jobs, and just started praying, like, "God, I feel like you're calling me to something new, and I don't know what that is yet. But I'm open to that conversation and just want to lean into what you're telling me." And my buddy called me, and he's like, "Hey man, my wife and I, we started watching CCV online, and these messages right now are really hitting home for us, and they've just regathered, and we're going to go check out a service in person. We'd love for you and your wife to come with us and just check it out, see what it's all about." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, might as well." And went and hung with him, and then within like the first 3 minutes of the service, my wife and I were just like in tears. Just totally overwhelmed with emotion, and just knew like God was just saying something to us throughout that whole service. We were just blown away with the high level production, the worship, and the teaching content really was hitting hard for us that day. And so we started continuing to go back, and we went back every weekend. We brought our kids with us. They loved it too. And our church eventually reopened and went back to that. And I just felt in that season, I was just like, man, this has changed us in a way that I don't know I can stay where I'm at now. And I don't know what that means, God, but I feel like I need to make a move here. So started talking to some folks at CCV and just looking at opportunities of what could be ahead. And an opportunity came up with Blair to be a contractor on the audio team, which was like a huge shift from what I was doing. I was full-time staff. I had benefits, everything that, I was living a dream job basically at my old church. And
were you going to contract at Broadcast Campus?
It would have been contracting with the multi-site campuses. So any of the multi-sites at the time, I would have been traveling, going there on a weekend and mixing.
Yeah. Was it a much bigger context as far as like size of room and the gear you're using?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Totally. Definitely something that was pushing me into a new area. I had been so used to the studio world at that time because I had been in the studio like for 10 years plus at that time. And I wasn't mixing much at church anymore too, because I was on stage every weekend. So this was definitely a push for my comfort zone, but I was up for the challenge, man. And I walked away, in a really healthy way from my old church and, took on the opportunity, really trusted God in that season. And it went from, full-time work to contract work, which is uneasy for a lot of people. But, my wife was really supportive at that time and, was contracting for about 5 months every weekend with CCV. And then within that 5 months, started talking to leadership about, coming on staff full time for a production manager role for a future campus. And then I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. I've been trusting God this whole process and just believing that he's got my side. He's got my back for whatever's ahead. And, so I took on that role, left the contract team on the audio side. And then within probably I think another 6 months from there, took on an audio role with the broadcast campus with Blair and Yvonne. And, in the middle of that process, started talking to Ben Gowell, who's the executive pastor that oversees all of CCV Creative. Yeah. And Ben had actually been in the production director's seat this whole time that I was on staff. And he just started saying, hey man, I'm looking to pass this on to someone. And would you consider this as an option? And I was like, I have no clue, man. This was never on my radar. Yeah. It was honestly kind of terrifying to think about that.
Yeah, so you're kind of going from doing the craft to now putting together and leading a team, a very different skill set.
Yep. But, looking back at the journey, from that conversation in that room to everything that had led to that point, there had been so many God moments. And I truly felt that this was another God moment of just trust the process, trust where I'm leading you. And accepted the offer. And then I've been the production director now at CCV for, I think, 2.5 years, going on 3 in August. So it's been an awesome journey so far, man. It's an awesome team and an awesome church.
Do you feel like you were ready for that moment when it was going from doing the thing to now leading the team? Or has it been a definite learning curve for you and making mistakes along the way?
It definitely at first felt like I was drinking from the fire hose. That first 3 to 4 months was, in particular, just was a lot of information and a lot of new meetings I was involved in and leading meetings and a completely new rhythm. But man, it was so great to have a guy like Ben walking alongside me in that season to help me and just really encourage me in that. Yeah. And then from there, it is a testament to the team, man. It's an awesome community at CCV and an awesome production team, and they all had my back and were all with me in that too. So yeah, it was a lot to take in and a lot of change at first, but I got into a good rhythm, I would say, after that first year. And it's weird. It feels like I've been in this role longer, but it's only been 2.5 years, if that makes sense.
And you guys are running 16 campuses now?
We just launched our 18th campus.
Okay. So with 18 campuses, do you have a rough figure for how many staff contractors and volunteers it takes across that on any given week?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think just with staff right now, production-wise, we're at 35. Production team as a whole, it's a 35 total. Yeah. Volunteers, average campus on a weekend, we usually have about 4 positions on a weekend. Multiply that by 18 campuses. Yeah. And a robust team to rotate that crew, not having the same people every weekend. At our broadcast campus alone, I think we've got pushing almost 180 volunteers between our adults team and our students team. And yeah, I multiply that by probably 20 per campus. So it's a lot, man. Yeah. It's a big team. It's a big community.
Yeah. I love that you guys have 35 staff members in production. I mean, that is incredibly rare for, even gigantic churches this day and age. We visit a lot of them, and a lot of them have 2 guys for a 5,000 person church with 3 campuses.
It's the campuses that really blows me away when there's how many campuses does Biltmore have? And for a time there, they had 1 tech guy.
Yeah. Wow. We were at Brentwood Baptist recently, and there's 3 of them on staff, and they have 8 campuses, something like that.
Yeah. Anytime I hear that, I don't understand.
Yeah. So, good on your leadership to invest in such a robust team, knowing that if you want to grow, you got to have the right people. So let's talk about your volunteers, but this also applies to staff members or contractors. Like day one, what are you trying to instill in them? Are you starting with the technical side, like here, read this manual, or do you start more with a vision of like, let's talk about why we do what we do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a balance of both, out of necessity. The skills are obviously important to the weekend experience for a volunteer, and knowing how to run the gear or run a piece of, run a camera, run some lighting, run lyrics, timing, all that kind of stuff comes into play. And there's definitely a skill that's involved with that, but never forgetting the why behind all of that, and really keeping that in front of the skill, I think is really important. And, recognizing that I think volunteers are there to serve. They're not just there to like push buttons on a weekend. They really want to be a part of a community and a team and do more than just be on a camera. They really want to participate in an experience and pointing people to Jesus and reminding them that they are doing that, and sharing stories and casting the vision of what it means to serve in the local church and being the body of Christ. Everyone on our volunteer team is a part of that. It's not just our staff. Our volunteers are a huge part of that as well.
Yeah.
So from our side, man, that's a huge thing. I think vision's really kind of above skill. We can keep on the skill and training and do our job to show people, how to run the gear. But man, the vision stuff it's really important from my side.
How do you guys keep that front and center? Is that like senior pastor leadership is, starting that, or is that kind of your role, or, does it, how does it flow?
It takes the whole team, man. And it takes with leading by example. That's just one of our fundamentals we have at our church is, be the leader that you would want to be led by, and be present with God and be present with those around you. Encourage people around you, their faith journey. Not just being present with people on the weekend, but what are you doing during the week? Are you reaching out to volunteers? You taking out to coffee? What's that one-on-one pastoral investment look like beyond just the weekend? And celebrate each other too, man. That's always a big one for our team. Is we start every meeting on our production team celebrating each other, shouting each other out. Celebrating the wins from the weekend, or cool stories from campuses, or people that have gotten involved and got maybe baptized or something. Yeah. So we can continue to hear those stories and celebrate that, because when you're in production, you guys know this, you don't usually hear the good. You usually hear the complaints when it's regarding feedback. Yeah,
no,
I know, shocker. So staying in front of that's really important for our culture. Just honoring what our volunteers do, man. I always make it a moment every weekend when we talk down the service before we get into rehearsal, just shouting out our volunteers and acknowledging the importance of what that means. Dedicating your weekend to serve with us, and you're changing lives not just in this room but outside too. At our broadcast campus, our volunteers are participating in something that is going beyond just a room. It's going out to the world online. It's going to all of our campuses, and it takes a team of really amazingly skilled people and just good people that want to serve and have the heart to serve the church.
Yeah. If I thought of 3 buckets, and I'm sure there's more of these buckets, but you have a volunteer and they enjoy production and they end up doing it for a long time. How would you like prioritize these buckets? The vision of why they're doing the importance of, a kingdom impact. 2, they're part of a great team. Everybody likes to be part of a community, something cool. And then 3, you just get to play with fun stuff. How do you see those things kind of falling in priority of keeping longevity of your volunteers?
Yeah. Man, I think one of this could be just a cool example, an idea for people to do with their volunteers, but we do these volunteer appreciation nights where we'll get like an entire area together. So like we've got maybe 5 campuses in the west area of Phoenix. We'll get all the volunteers together from those campuses and just share a meal together and talk about what it means to serve. But one of the highlights of those nights that we get to do is just hearing from volunteers that have been serving for like more than 5 years and what keeps them going and their story and their background. And man, like some of the stories that people get to share in those moments, I wish I could capture for like our entire church to hear. but you never know the impact that you're making on someone's life by just giving them an opportunity to serve the local church. And that importance of the vision being in front of that always can have such a major impact. And I think when we talk about longevity in serving and volunteers, it is important to acknowledge that. And I think it helps them feel energized and refreshed when you acknowledge just their heart and their dedication for such a long time and why they do that. But it's also like, man, you've been doing this for 10 years or so. What can we do to elevate that? Can we like give you more opportunity? Can we have you start training volunteers? Mm-hmm. Have you get involved even further? What are ways that you can inspire others? I'm only one person. I can multiply myself now and have you be a part of that with me, and I think being ahead of that is really important. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, it's all great stuff. Blake, you've been at Church Gear. It's not far from 5 years.
It'll be 5 years this September if I live that long.
What keeps you going here at Church Gear? I know it's
going to Philo to see Todd Elliott. I mean,
I don't blame you.
That is the answer.
Yeah, it's like your birthday and Philo pretty much happen like almost the same day some years.
May is the only reason I live. You know, it's a good time. It's a good time. Do you guys ever record those sessions, man? And like people sharing their why? Because I'm hearing in those events, it sounds like Sounds like you're sharing community and calling. It's like community amongst the volunteers and the calling of why we're there. I'm just thinking, man, you should send some of those videos to us if you ever record it. We'd love to post on our story.
Yeah.
Let's shout some people out. That's really cool.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
So with 35 staff members, that helps this issue. I mean, some of our other listeners would kill for that big a team, but
who would they kill, Toby? What weapon would they use?
The sword of the Spirit.
No, I was thinking they'd use like a PreSonus.
Oh yeah, have we ever done something where it's like, what's the deadliest production
we kill
equipment?
Someone.
No, but like production equipment's dangerous.
I think we did a battle royale in the episode with Drew and Jeff. If we ever, next battle royale episode, we should do that.
That could be a Church Tech Madness, Samir, like deadliest production gear.
I like that.
Write that down. But Ryan, talk to us about Sabbath and how you guys as a team handle it. And for our listeners, when, the normal Sabbath of Sunday is your heaviest work day, how do you guys prioritize and make sure that Sabbath and rest actually becomes part of your rhythm when the fires never stop burning around a church?
Yeah. It's so important. This is such a impactful one for me because honestly, just being transparent, I did not practice Sabbath very well for a long time. And, if you work in production and you work in ministry, you tend to be very driven. You work hard. There's a lot going on. It never stops. The weekend's always coming. So coming to CCV, it was kind of like an eye-opening concept for me. Coming into a culture that really protects the Sabbath for the team and really encourages people to fully unplug and rest on, which is our Sabbath is on Friday, which I know is pretty normal, but for weekend support teams. But what we typically do is we'll take Friday as the day, like you're fully unplugged, you're resting, you're spending time with your family, you're spending time in worship. But something that we started doing last year was taking Thursday as a flex or off day to basically allow time to take care of the grocery shopping, take care of getting haircuts, oil changes, doctor appointments, so that your Friday doesn't become that and not a Sabbath.
Is that when you do your facial reconstruction surgery is on Thursdays?
Yeah, exactly.
You got to keep up the maintenance schedule, right. Toby. Change the oil.
Man, and something I want to say too, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you've heard of this book or have read it, but The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry from John Mark Comer.
Yes, sir.
That book changed my life, man. And just the very idea of taking Sabbath, honoring that and resting and not allowing distractions on your Sabbath or even during your normal, work rhythms or work weeks. I think it's a really important book for anyone that serves in ministry to actually read and apply in their life. So, it was that and just the concept of do nothing on Friday. And if you don't do anything, it's great. Just rest, you know, and if you're not resting, you're not being the best husband you can be. the best father you can be, or parent, or the best friend you can be to others. And you're not being present with God too if you're not resting. So we really value that as a team. And another cool thing that we get to do, and I recognize when I talk about CCV's context, even the idea of having 35 staff members on production is mind-blowing to a lot of people, and I totally understand that. But this is another idea that our leadership really values for our team that's doing weekend support, because we have such an intense weekend on Saturday, Sunday, plus some Monday night services for campuses as well. We'll allow all of our central weekend support teams to take 2 weekends off every quarter, which equates to 8 weekends off a year.
Yeah.
And that's also like, man, do the normal weekend thing with your family, or do nothing, just rest and just be lazy, or go to church with your family and attend with your wife for once. That's a crazy concept for a lot of people that work at church, So on top of the Sabbath, that's also something that we really value as a church and as a culture too.
Yeah.
I've got the tagline for the production team there.
Okay.
8 Sundays a year where you can attend church with your wife and she can smack your butt at church.
We can all hope.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good, check-in of health. How many times is it happening out of those 8?
Totally. Blake, I think I mentioned we're reading through the Bible in 2 years at Church of the City right now. So I'm part of the 2-year plan right now.
Slacker.
I know.
I think it's going to take me 7 by the time I'm done. I'm still going.
Now, I'm in Numbers right now. Now, Numbers is getting a little more interesting than Leviticus. Leviticus is brutal. But this whole Old Testament God, he's not messing around back then. One guy as part of the Israelite camp goes out and collects wood on the Sabbath, and God says, stone that guy.
So they gave him a blunt?
Wow. You're really on a roll today, aren't you, Blake?
Look, it's a Wednesday, but I'm acting like it's Friday night for some reason.
So, God takes the Sabbath very seriously. And obviously, there's a lot more grace in this New Testament time now that we have Jesus as our Lord and Savior. But
hey, Toby, you know the difference between God in the New Testament and the Old Testament?
What?
The New Testament's when he became a Christian. Someone told me a kid came up with that, and I was like,
that's pretty dang good.
If you look at it through a kid's lens, that it feels that way.
Yeah. My cutest quote growing up was, I asked my mom, if my heart broke, would Jesus fall out?
Oh,
because you asked Jesus into your heart,
That's really cute.
Thank you. But Ryan, for our listeners that say okay, our church also says Friday's your Sabbath, but also I have way more work than I can possibly get done and actually take a Friday off. Is that on them, or is that on their leadership? Do they need to have a conversation? Do they need to get better at their tasks Monday through Thursday? I know that's, putting you on the spot.
Or do we stone them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Option 3. No, I'm kidding. I would say for sure, it does take raising your hand and just saying, hey, I don't have time to rest, or I'm feeling burnt out, and there's just so much to do. How can I get some help? Or are there things that I can delegate to others? Or are there opportunities where you could even involve volunteers to help you during your week? I think that's really important. Having that conversation with leadership, and having that open feedback and that dialogue with each other is really important. But I also think too, when we talk about in the CCV context of that Thursday flex day and that Friday Sabbath, we're working really hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to make sure that we're doing everything we can to set the table for the weekend, so that when we are fully unplugged on Friday, we're not thinking about, oh man, I still have to load content and test everything. I still have to make patches on the audio console. I still have to reset the backline from this event that we had during the week, So it's really it's a lot of self-management and calendar management, and communication, making sure that, you're doing all the things you need to do during the week to set you up for success for that weekend and for your Sabbath as well. So you can be fully rested and present for the weekend ahead.
Yeah. Blake, I've been meaning to have a conversation with you that I just feel like that you've reversed the Sabbath, where you're working one day and then you're taking 6 off. So.
I love that you think I'm working one day, Toby.
I mean, what do you even do around here? Define your job in
fart in
2 words.
Fart in rooms. Right before you walk in them. I did that right before we started recording. I thought Toby was going to choke.
Yeah, I just immediately walked back out. I can't deal with this right now.
It was worse than I expected.
Yeah, it was like a frat house in here, just stinky.
I love that you think a frat house is that bad.
Ryan, you kind of live both sides of this, but people often get into production when they're young and they learn something like they get a hold of lighting or they get a hold of audio, and it's a really fun discipline. And are you okay over there, Blake? Do you need a moment?
Get a hold of someone else's
Oh
butt in the atrium. Look, it happened.
Oh,
Maybe
gosh.
we should cut it. I just couldn't stop laughing.
No, leave it. I mean,
No,
we're the nonsense podcast around here.
Gosh.
So Ryan, often people come up in production and they learn a craft and they become an incredible front of house engineer. They become an incredible video director. And then at some point, it's kind of like, well, you've reached the ceiling. Unless you're going to go out on tour, you're going to be the front of house engineer for U2. You have to step over into the leadership side in order to, progress in your career, your calling in church production. Talk to us about some of the differences between the skill set, on those two different things.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Yeah, I think definitely from my experience too, living in both worlds, I would call myself more in the leadership side now than I am in the tech side, just with my role specifically. But everybody, I think, that's involved in ministry and production specifically, or not in ministry, but in production, like you said, you got into that world because of a specific skill set or gift that you have that leans into the technical side, whether that's audio, video, lighting, and it becomes your thing. It kind of defines who you are in a way.
Yeah.
And I think that's good, but there comes a point where you have to kind of look back and think of moments in your life. Like, I'll use my story, for example, when I was 19 or 20 and I was a fresh intern looking for opportunity, and my former boss and mentor, Jeff, was like, hey, what if you came to church on a weekend and mixed audio for us? It took him as a leader to release the thing that he was doing to give someone else an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And I think there comes a point with anybody that's in production, in ministry, where, you can hold on to the thing that you do so well, but it takes releasing the pride and the ego and inviting others into your space and what you do to really empower and develop who's got next and the next generation, or allow you to have some bandwidth during the week so that you can take a Sabbath, to me, that's the sign of a true leader, is someone that breaks down a silo, isn't just behind the scenes hiding in the booth with their head down, their eyes up, and they're present to the people that are maybe peeking their head over the booth and asking a question of like, man, what's that piece of gear you're working on? Oh, come in, man. Let's check this out together.
Yeah.
And those types of conversations, man, they can lead to actually changing someone's trajectory for the rest of their life. And, I think all of us have that story, and anybody working in a technical skill or field in production has a story like that, where someone gave them an opportunity or saw something in them that they didn't think would be possible, and now they're doing something that they never thought they'd be doing in their life.
Yeah.
So to me, building a team, building a culture of people that want to serve together, and developing people with skills that can help you be a better leader. The sign of a healthy team and a healthy leader is if you're not there and the team's there and they're crushing it, that's a healthy team and that's a healthy leadership. So I would say, the more you can lean into that and not be the one guy that does everything or owns that one thing, the more you can release and delegate and empower, the better your culture is going to be, the better leader you're going to be, and the better you're going to be at what you do overall.
Yeah. And I think it's important, you can kind of make the parallel with professional athletes. Like, everybody wants to be, Michael Jordan, but there's very few people that get to experience that. And if they do, it's, you're going to age out very quickly and then move on to, do you just want to be the has-been, or are you going to then become a coach? What's your next iteration? Because, there's like, Yvonne's kind of the Michael Jordan of mixing audio, but there's only one Yvonne. But there are churches all across America that are desperate for good leaders to build healthy production teams. And so there's all these opportunities to learn that leadership and just grow other people like you're talking about.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, and Yvonne's a great example of that, man. He's been so open-handed in the time that I've known him at CCV. Even just recently, inviting one of our young female production staff into the booth and letting her mix on a Monday night in the room. It's like, man, he's such a good teacher, and he's so open-handed about that. And Yvonne will be the first one to tell you, like, he'll say, I don't own anything, what I get to do is a blessing, and I love to share the blessing with others.
Yeah.
And I think that's the posture that we wrestle with a lot in production. And, it's good to release. It's good to empower. It's good to let go of things and bring in the next generation, because you need to, man. It's really important. And it's good to bring in young leaders and people that are people that were like you when you were younger, hungry for that opportunity. So,
yeah. But Blake, of course, if Yvonne let you into the booth, that would be really bad leadership, because if you mixed audio on a Monday, that would be a
disaster, because the board would melt after some toxic farts. We love a good disaster story on the podcast. When everything went wrong, how did you handle it? Did you have to explain it to leadership afterwards, or the artist maybe, if you were out on the road? We take all stories here, but just tell us the moment when everything went wrong and you were just like, this is the worst moment of my life behind this console.
Yeah, I've got two. I'll be quick. The first one was like probably my fourth weekend contracting with CCV, and I was at a campus I'd never been to before. And the production manager who oversaw that campus was off that weekend. So I was there mixing, and we're getting ready for the first service, and I'm getting ready to record my board mix in virtual. I hit record, and we hit the snapshot for go. Worship team comes, on stage, and they're just like, "Hey, everybody, welcome to CCV." And this giant feedback loop just starts happening. Band, vocals, it literally sounds like the Transformers broke into the campus and are battling each other. People are like covering their ears, and it probably lasted like 15 seconds. It felt like 5 minutes for me.
Yeah.
And I knew immediately what was wrong. And I look over at the computer, and somehow the routing for the board mix got into the system. So it was just creating a nonstop feedback loop through the system. So I go over, I quit the program freezes, and you see the spinning wheel of death. And I'm just like, oh no. Eventually it finally closes, and all is calm in the world. Everybody, they're like taking their hands off their ears and looking around at each other like, what just happened? And the band, they were so professional. Like, I get on the talkback mic and I'm like, sorry guys, we had a technical issue. And so they get back on mic and I'm like, sorry everybody, some technical issues, let's go. And right into service, and everything went off without a hitch from there. But that was my fourth week on the team at CCV in audio contract, and I thought it was going to be my last, but turns out all is well.
Yeah.
How did the phone call go when they asked about it?
It was good. I mean, we kind of joked about it, but it was kind of like let's make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
It's always how it goes. It's like, I'm not going to be mad, but you better promise that won't happen again. And then I won't be mad.
Yeah. But it was a good experience, and I never will. I always now, every time I do virtual and I'm recording my board mix, I always double check that as just a precaution. So it's a good learning experience.
Yeah.
Second story real quick. This was my first weekend producing at the broadcast campus. This is when I was in talks of the production director role. And we were in our At the Movies series, which is all pre-recorded message content. So we weren't going live. So easy weekend to have my first weekend producing. And Blair is about to go on a 2-week vacation. And before the first service, he pulls us into the booth, me and Yvonne, and he's like, hey guys, really looking forward to this vacation time. I'm setting you up for success here. Here's a couple things just like to check on throughout the next couple weeks with some audio stuff. Nothing's going to go wrong. Everything's going to be great, and look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. And I'm like,
famous
awesome.
last words.
Yep.
It'll be fine, Toby.
Within, I think, we were probably 30 minutes from service start there. We started getting some audio engine failure notifications on the console, and rebooted the whole system. We were like, yeah, we probably just need to do a fresh reboot on everything. So system seems stable after that. We get 10 minutes into service, same error pops up, audio engine drops, we lose everything, no audio in the room. and we couldn't get it back up and running. It just would not connect back to the console. So pastor comes out and just starts yelling like, sorry, everybody, we have no audio. We're gonna have to dismiss you. If you come back to the next service, we may have the system up and running, or come back Sunday. And so we basically dismissed like 3,000 people from the room. Team rallies, everybody gets together, and we're just like, all right, here's the plan. Let's get everybody together. Let's put together a makeshift audio system. Let's grab the old analog, 4-channel console from the audio cage backstage. Let's grab some speakers on sticks, set them up in the room, and we're just going to do acoustic worship for the next service. And let's reroute everything through this console and just make church happen. And it took like 20 minutes. The team rallied, and we had doors open for the next service. And we had probably one of the most impactful services that we had in a long time, just from that, with a simple system and acoustic worship, and people still got to hear Jesus, and it was really inspiring. So
I'm pitching it again. We need to intentionally mess up a couple times a year. Every time it's this. It was the best worship service of the year.
Yep. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard now, like the system crashed and we had to put 2 speakers on sticks on stage and just do acoustic worship. Now, not everybody had the most impactful service ever. A lot of them did, but some of them are still ticked about it.
Some of them are, but I think that breakup in the norm really wakes people up out of their, I'm just going to church on Sunday.
Sure. Yeah, did they say it like that? They get up in the morning, I'm just going to church on Sunday. I'm going to touch somebody's butt.
That's what that one lady said to me. All right. Well, that would be my tech takeaway from this episode, is let something intentionally go wrong every now and then. Also, I'm not a production person, so you should never listen to my advice.
No.
But someone's advice you should listen to is Ryan's. So Ryan, if you had a tech takeaway, this is your unique piece of advice, what would you say to a room full of church production people?
Yeah, I think that's good to jump off of. Allow for failure and know that things are going to go wrong. You can only can control so much in live production. And when things do go wrong, take that as an opportunity to learn and grow from that, and maybe put together a makeshift system and do church differently. But people can still learn and hear the word, even in a temporary system that's not what you normally use, and be open to that. And you can find that really impactful moments can happen in those times too. So that's a good thing to land on.
That's great.
Love it. Well, Ryan, if you're going to point people towards anything, you want to plug anything?
My social is compelling and thrilling.
I thought you were saying you've gotten the username compelling, and I was like, that's a cool name.
Yeah, lots of content of my dogs and my family. And so if you're into that kind of stuff, my Instagram is Ryan M. Wenzel. My middle initial M is in Matthew. And you can find me on the Facebook, if people still use the Facebook.
I use the Facebook, but I'm old.
Yeah.
Toby is addicted to Facebook.
That's where my generation hangs out.
Well, that's fine, Tobes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it'll come back someday, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm still waiting for MySpace to come back.
That's never coming back.
And MySpace is still waiting for Xanga to come back.
Blake, what are you doing on your phone right now? We're trying to record a podcast.
I'm a content guy. I think that Ryan looks really cool, so I'm going to put him on our story.
He does look really cool.
He looks awesome on this TV.
Yeah. Awesome.
Blake, is Toby in your top 8 on MySpace?
Listen, Toby tried to pay me once to be in my top 8, and I said no, and then he hasn't paid me since, so I wish. I really need to adjust that. I lost my login.
I know. I love when we run payroll around here, and I just message Brian and Dan, like, don't pay Blake, and they're like, oh, okay.
I'm an intern.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, we really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor, guys. Great hanging with you.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Blake, is it time to confess that I used to be the guy, touching my buddies' butts at church? Like, I'd walk by and I'd, like, pinch my buddies' butts. But it's, like, my best buds at church.
Oh, of course, your best buds. Yeah, not random strangers.
Yeah. And it's funny when I mentioned that to my brother one time. He's a professor in Dallas and, like, very professional. And he said, Toby, if you're going to start a company, you got to stop doing that. You can't do that to your employees. So... am I better at that around here?
For legal reasons, I will not respond to what Toby said, but you should share this episode. Actually, you shouldn't, because we said a lot of butt humor, but you should go back in the catalog and share an old one with a friend. That's appropriate.
Or if not, just walk in your friend's bedroom and just rip a big fart like Blake did before this podcast.